I love how the secular world picks up on the things that the Catholics do and then like kind of tries to secularize them, but the foundation is Catholic, right? You got like Valentine's Day. Well, that's St. Valentine's Day. You know, it's like a Halloween. Well, that's All Hallows Eve. You know, so it's a great opportunity, I find, to be able to even like do a little bit of evangelization or a little bit of like, you know, teaching or catechizing, even if it's to your children or grandchildren or neighbors.
Yeah, because you'll meet people and to help them see that there's too much and then there's just enough, so to speak.
Welcome to Tulsa Time with Bishop Konderla. I'm Adam Minahan. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and for all the reviews that we've been receiving about Tulsa Time recently. We've had over 15 5-star reviews on the Apple Podcasts, and we've been receiving some really great emails about Tulsa Time and about our new podcast that we've released within the diocese with Deacon Kevin Malarkey. And it's just been like this adventure has been one that has been great to have, not only with you, Bishop, but with everybody joining us across Eastern Oklahoma.
But by now on that channel, there's what, about 6 or 7?
Yeah, so we have, I think we're posting,
podcasts?
Yeah, I think we're posting about 2 to 3 times a week, you know, and each one is a different thing. So we got the Tulsa Time, we got Forming Our Faith with Deacon Kevin Malarkey, and then we have typically one that's either a talk that's being given throughout the diocese, or...
But also Father Sean O'Brien?
Father Sean O'Brien, yeah, we typically give a little taste of different podcasts that are happening throughout our diocese.
Oh, his are not on there?
Well, not all of them, no. Okay. Our goal is to like push people to his podcast as well.
Oh, okay.
To kind of be a platform for us.
And then... do we do the same with like the Man Show and? Well,
not the Man Show. We try to, but we do the Glory Be podcast with Mike Malcolm and Pastors of Pain with Father Brian O'Brien and Father Kerry Wakulich.
Right.
So all these great podcasts that are happening either through our clerics, through different laity with around the diocese.
And Carlo is doing his just regular show, right?
Yeah, Carlo is putting together, because he's going around. This is such a beautiful thing that we're doing here in the diocese is having Carlo Broussard, who's part of Catholic Answers and part of our diocese. He's traveling around.
But his regular show, doesn't he do his regular show?
His regular show happens from the studio, from Catholic Answers Live, and he has a Sunday show or a Sunday reading show where he goes through the readings of the Mass and give an apologetic angle to help people understand the faith a little bit more based on Scripture. Every Word Sunday, that's what it's called. Every Word Sunday with Carlo Broussard.
Good.
So there's a lot of great things happening in the diocese right now.
Yeah, that's good. Of course, everything revolves around the parishes and the Mass in the parishes, so that's the main thing that any diocese does is the celebration of the Eucharist. So.
That's right. Yeah. And that's the beautiful thing about, the Catholic faith is we have liturgical seasons, and a lot of times they even match up with, the seasons that are changing outside. Like, we're into October now. The leaves are finally starting to change. We're getting a little bit of a relief from the heat.
The pumpkin spice latte season. I saw an advertisement for pumpkin spice hosts. That was actually, they took a box of hosts and did a little fancy Photoshop with it.
With
pumpkin spice hosts.
Just get.
I don't know any pastor who's doing that.
Please no. But that's pretty good. Yeah. So this is such I love this time of year with the seasons are changing. It's getting a little cooler weather. The beautiful foliage outside.
Right.
And this is a unique time in the even liturgical year as we're still journeying through ordinary time, but we're getting into when we get into the end of October, there's some special things that are happening that I love how the secular world picks up on the things that the Catholics do and then like kind of tries to secularize them, but the foundation is Catholic,
Mhm.
right? You got like Valentine's Day. Well, that's St. Valentine's Day. You know, it's like a Halloween. Well, that's All Hallows Eve.
Mm.
You know, so it's a great opportunity I find to be able to even like do a little bit of evangelization or a little bit of like, you know, teaching or catechizing, even if it's to your children or grandchildren or
Right.
neighbors.
Yeah, because you'll meet people and to help them see that there's too much and then there's just enough, so to speak. Halloween coming as it does towards the end of the liturgical year. The end of the liturgical year focuses on the last things: heaven, death. That's a good death.
Death, heaven, hell.
Yeah, I'm missing one. Death, something, heaven, hell. The four last things.
Purgatory?
I guess it may be
Purgatory?
that. Yeah.
All right, let me look it up. Let me look it up.
Ask the Google, Saint Google. But you know, the liturgical season, the readings all focus us.
Death, judgment, heaven, hell.
That's it. Death, judgment. Focus us on remembering that we aren't here forever. That the purpose of being here is not here.
Mm-hmm.
It's not so that we stay here. The purpose of being here is to love God, to worship God, to love our neighbor, and to be with God forever in heaven. And that doesn't happen until, well, there's a group of people for whom that will happen before they die, but we don't know when that will be.
Right.
For most of us, the end time will come at our natural death. And so we want to prepare for that. We're not afraid of death. As a people of faith, we're not afraid of death, and that allows us to have a certain spontaneity or gaiety with how we speak of death, treat death. And then Halloween, you know, the eve before we celebrate all the saints, All Hallows Eve. The saints are all people who have died and who are living in the Lord. And so death becomes a prominent theme, death with all of its mystery. And thus it lends itself to exaggeration.
Sure.
In the secular culture. So, for example, when I drive out to my little country property on my day off and I pass one particular lawn, and there's everything in that lawn, there's everything from fake tombstones, to all kinds of spiderweb stuff, to big, tall mechanical werewolves. I haven't looked real closely. Maybe there's ghosts or vampires, or I don't know what all's in there. But there's no saints in there. There's no depiction of saints in there. There's no depiction of faith or items of faith. And so it's not that so much that we are against the exaggeration, although it's not helpful, as much as we want to promote what is true and good and focuses us on what is important. So, for example, the tombstones, the fake tombstones, well, that could be something that one might put in their yard as an appropriate Halloween decoration. It reminds us that death is a part of life and is a part of moving to live with God. But werewolves, where does that fit in? You know, that's some kind of a fictional character and so forth. Okay, so it does fit in some literature. I'm sure there's good literature about werewolves. There's about, you know, Dracula, about Frankenstein. Those things all have a moral purpose. But the depiction of them in popular culture typically doesn't. It's just to have something that's macabre and gross, let alone all the Freddy the Krueger the 13th and all the whatever the things are like that. Jason, you know, what is that?
Yeah, the Chainsaw, or no, he's not the Chainsaw Massacre.
Well, he's another one. Yeah, so all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, what do you think the fascination with gore is? Like, do you think we can like fantasize too much about the gore, like where it's unhealthy for us? And
Well, of course, that, yes. Certainly, there's those little novels called, what are they called? Creepers or Creeps? Or there's a whole bunch of, a little series of little novels for like teens.
Goosebumps was one.
Goosebumps,
That's what we used to read as little kids. Yeah.
And so I've known kids in parish life, I've known kids who were terrified after too much exposure to that.
Uh-huh.
The Exorcist movie, it's coming back around again. And
it's funny. It's always like it comes around like give it about 30 years, and it seems like every 30 years or so they bring those back out.
And I don't know if perhaps the reason that they become popular is for the same reason that people like to go on roller coasters. It's scary,
mm-hmm.
and there's a physical, emotional, psychological manifestation and energy that it generates in you. And if you're doing it with friends, so you can all laugh together, people love to go to haunted houses together.
Yeah.
So they can scare each other and laugh about who got scared at what. Perhaps that's what it is. I think some of it, though, is a sideways and unconscious desire to understand and to somehow make connection with what is going on in my life and what will be the end of my life. I'm sure some of it must be rooted in that. So Halloween on the whole, we've done an article that's on our website.
Yes.
That people can continue to refer to,
mm-hmm.
that seeks to educate about what All Hallows Eve is about, and thus what Halloween, at least for believers, is about. That has some recommendations about better ways to celebrate it. Dressing kids up as saints, for example, helps to teach children about the saints, and
mm-hmm.
so they can come to understand it in a correct way.
And you can do that in a really cool way, right? Like for kids, like sometimes if you say, "Oh, dress them up as saints," it's like, does that sound a little weird? Or like, but you can do St. Michael the Archangel with wings and, a sword. Your kids, my boys loved dressing up as St. Michael.
Sure.
We had Anna, was Anna Faustina is her name, and she was dressed up as Sister Faustina one year. Had carrying a picture of Jesus with the divine mercy, and we gave her the whole habit. I mean, we went all out of cardboard and black, black cloth, you can make them like cool costumes where it's not like a weird thing, but it's fun.
Well, but if you have kids who want to do the macabre, if they're set on being macabre, think of the depictions of saints in statues or windows. So, for example, St. Lucy carries her eyes around on a plate.
Yeah.
That's pretty macabre.
Yeah. What about St. Dennis?
Someone could dress up as St. Lucy. Plenty of saints could carry their head around because they were killed that way.
St. Lawrence, you could put a grill on.
Put a grill mark. St. Bartholomew was flayed alive. He carries his skin around, depicted in windows and so forth.
Yeah.
So there's plenty. If kids think it's silly or boring to have the nice, sweet saint costume, well, you can have some pretty
gnarly costumes.
Pretty gnarly costumes for kids who want to do that, and still focus on, but why did that saint die?
Mm.
It was for love of God and in a time of oppression and so forth. Those are things that one can do. And of course, trick-or-treating is fun, and doing that in safe ways these days is important, and all of that. I know there's trunk or treats and all those kinds of
parishes do.
Developed.
Mm-hmm. Now let's talk about the name Halloween. You kind of hinted at it, that it's the eve before the saints, but like the etymology of like hallows, like what does hallow mean?
Well, I think it comes from an Old English word
mm-hmm.
That simply has to do with the saints, the hallowed ones, the ones who have the halo.
Yeah, the holy, right?
Right. And we have in the church, we talk about the saints, and there we usually mean those men and women who have been canonized as saints by the church. That's a whole big formal process. We're in the middle of it with Stanley Rother. He's beatified.
Keep praying, guys.
Yeah, that's right. Now we want to see a miracle so that we can move the next step to have him formally canonized. But as we've discussed before on this podcast, we all know plenty of saintly people, people who we think are holy.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's lots of uncanonized saints, men and women
Mm-hmm.
who have died after living heroic holiness in their life, but for whatever reasons are not canonized. So we're celebrating all of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that we know of the ones who are canonized when we celebrate All Saints' Day.
I've seen a meme before online where it shows a picture of an iceberg, and you see the very tip of the iceberg with water, and you see the tip of it, and that tip represents the canonized saints. And then you see all the massive body of the iceberg below the water is just the actual people in heaven.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good meme. I haven't seen that, but that would be a good one.
Yeah.
It reminds us. I think I've heard Peter Kreeft maybe talk about the democracy of the dead. So the idea that even when we talk about the sensus fidelium, so you hear that term now, the sense of the faithful, that's a term that's also coming up at the Synod, for example, the sensus fidelium, the fact that the people of God themselves have a natural sense of the faith.
Mm-hmm.
And that sensus fidelium, though, has to include all the people of God going all the way back. Otherwise, you are saying one particular period of time, one particular cultural expression of the faith could contain the sensus fidelium. Well, it couldn't. It could contain the sensus fidelium of those people living in that place and time, but that's such a small part of the faithful who we believe and celebrate on All Saints are still connected to us in the communion of saints in heaven. And so we think of all of them together.
Now, a lot of kids will dress up as ghosts, and you kind of mentioned even some people have ghosts in their yards and things like that, and a lot of people think that's cute. There's some cute ghosts, and then you have the movie Ghost, and all these other well, that kind of dates me. Probably a lot of our listeners probably don't even know. I've never seen Ghost.
Oh, I'm sure they have.
But
the giant marshmallow.
Yeah. But you get you have a bunch of depictions of what ghosts are. In the media and things like that. But what is it like? What do we really mean by ghosts? Like, what represents ghosts? What are they?
Well, I've read that the word that we use, ghosts, is a German word, Geist, which simply means spirit. And when we're talking about something like ghosts, we're talking about a mix of things that we believe and the things that are admixed into that we don't believe. We do believe in the idea of a spirit, the spiritual reality. All the angels are spirits, the Holy Spirit, of course. And we believe that human beings are a union of body and soul. The soul is spiritual. So the idea that there could be a ghost, meaning a person who is disconnected from their body because of death, and that's what it would mean. Now we have, within gender ideology, we have the idea that somehow souls and bodies can exist apart from each other entirely, such that a soul could be in the wrong body or that kind of thing. That's not what we believe. A spirit is if it is of a person, it has a body. It's just that in death, it has been separated from the body for a time, but will be reunited with a glorified body, its own glorified body. And so, so there's a period of time. We think in terms of purgatory, we think in terms of heaven, but we also know of the possibility of hell. And so there's some period of time between a person's death and the final judgment when everything is brought to an end, when the possibility would exist of a person's spirit, Geist, ghost, somehow being seen.
Mhm.
One would imagine, I would, in trying to think about it theologically, one would imagine this would happen under God's providence, God either commanding or permitting. A famous scriptural example is the one with Samuel appearing to the witch of Endor.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's an image of Samuel who is in Gehenna, not the place of the damned, but the place of the souls of persons who have died, who is brought back by this witch's calling him. Well, she doesn't have power to call him.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of what we have to guard against, is this idea of superstition and witchcraft and these kinds of things. But God sends him because he is a prophet, and God has more for him to do dealing with Saul. So the possibility exists. Now, I suspect that the majority of things that people experience and or imagine were ghosts are some other kind of phenomena, some kind of a hallucination that they have, or they watched The Exorcist and then they hear sounds all night long in the house and so forth. If you look up the kinds of movies that are under a title like on Prime Video or something, or Netflix or something, horror or thriller, the kinds of things that people can watch today, oh my goodness. Anybody watching that stuff who doesn't later have some kind of frightening experience is not paying attention, probably, because those are very frightening kinds of movies. So it can exist, but we have to avoid falling into either sin or simply superstition with regards to such things. We don't want a ghost to appear necessarily. We certainly don't believe we should try to call or contact or somehow beyond prayer make communion with. And if we experience something that is unexplainable, then we shouldn't immediately jump to the conclusion that it was a ghost. It might have been some other thing. That would be my sense of it. I haven't studied it deeply, but those are some things to avoid. We spoke recently, I think, about witchcraft and so forth. So among the things the spirits that might appear as a ghost could be the evil spirits. Hell has a vote too. God has the final word, but someone coming from hell with God permitting that to happen, to do harm, to persons, either in their thought process, in their connection to the church, in their beliefs or whatever. When we see psychics and fortune tellers and those kinds of things, those are not real powers. Those people will advertise that they can do this, they can do that, they have real powers, but those are not real powers to the degree that there's any actual paranormal power happening there. It's because God is permitting an evil presence to exert power in that through that person's life or something. So definitely that is to be guarded against. Things that seem innocent, the old Ouija board game, it was portrayed as a game. But those are actually diabolical kinds of things. I mean, a calling on spirits to guide my hands on some kind of this little pointer device is calling on spirits. I mean, we may not have the intention that it's actually going to be something,
but we have a spiritual reality.
But there is a spiritual reality around us. And so
what would you do, or what would you advise if a parent sees this in a kid's room, or we realize, oh well, maybe we shouldn't be doing this? what would you advise those parents?
Sees what in the...
Like a Ouija board, or
gosh, I would throw it out.
Throw it, just get it out of there.
Yeah, I would throw it out, throw it away. Now, it would be good to explain to the child and help them understand why, in the fact that we do believe, because we do believe that the devil is real, we don't do anything that could allow him any access to us or anyone we love. And so we stay away from all such things and we call on God, right? Draw near to God and flee from the devil, right?
Right. Yeah. And it wouldn't hurt also probably to grab some holy water or something like that. And bless the home again,
Which we did on our last episode, right?
Right. Yeah. We talked about that.
Holy water.
Yeah. So I agree. I think that's something we have to really be careful about, because we do live in a spiritual reality. We don't want to, do what the Lord has commanded us not to do.
Right. And I think that, something like trick or treat is fun, can be fun. I think parents would be wise to be very cautious, just because the kids could get hurt, and people, you don't know whose house you're going to. You don't know what strange things people might do these days. And so,
there's a lot more prudence involved, I think, that has to be taking place in Halloween in these days and age, especially with kids, because it's tough because you get some people who are wearing costumes that are not modest at all. So you get that you want to avoid. Then you got some costumes that are, like you said, kind of too gory and kind of corrupt the imagination that you got to kind of avoid. And that's why I highly like the parish events, the trunk or treats, things like that. I know the one at St. Benedict, there's always a big, Father Brooks always gives the big candy bars for those who come to his house. So
that's fun.
So that's always a win. Yeah. So I like, it's good to have a good group of people to go with, so you kind of know what you're getting into.
Yeah, and I think some people do that. They have not just every house in the neighborhood, but people they know.
Right.
They go to their house,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any Halloween memories that you can think of, like growing up? What was your favorite thing to dress up as?
Oh, I think I probably dressed up as a cowboy, and I think I recall dressing up as a pirate. I heard a funny Jim Gaffigan riff on that. We just think it's so cute to dress our kids up as the pirates, the people who were pillaging and raping and plundering all around the Caribbean. And it's so cute to dress up. But those are things that I recall. And we just went all around our neighborhood.
Yeah.
Back then you sort of knew most everybody in your neighborhood. Our house with 12 kids in it was the central hub for practically every kid in the neighborhood, because we had somebody their age in our family. So for that reason, we probably knew more people in the neighborhood than most. There was one couple down the street who didn't do trick-or-treating and didn't allow anyone to come in their yard to do trick-or-treating. And so, they were a house to avoid.
Yeah.
Yeah. But mostly it was innocent fun. And about that time of the year, back in those days, the city would actually spray for mosquitoes in neighborhoods. And so this big fogger truck would come and drive all around the neighborhood, up and down the streets, putting out this big cloud of some kind of white mosquito insecticide. And we literally were running and riding our bikes behind it in the cloud. And I've never grown another toe or something so far, but it's amazing that how loose things were back
then. Yeah. Well, so All Hallows Eve, Halloween, leads up to, like we kind of mentioned, All Saints Day.
So All Saints Day. So that's a solemnity, a day of being able to celebrate Mass in a very solemn way. That's the tip of the iceberg, and then the next day is the iceberg.
Right, is All Souls Day. So
All Souls Day.
So next week, let's talk about All Saints Day, ways in which we should celebrate All Saints Day. Also, and we'll get into All Souls Day. Why is it that we pray for souls? That's a hang up for a lot of non-Catholics. Is like, why should we be praying for souls? Should they be praying for us? What does that all mean? Mm-hmm. So next week, let's jump into that. What do you think?
Sure.
All right. This is Tulsa Time with Bishop Konderla. We'll see you guys next week.